Democrat Party being taken over by wide-eyed Nepo socialists. Let's check it out. And welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Happy Friday to you. A revolution that started with AOC, a Westchester County princess who rebranded as a street tough bartender from the Bronx, has expanded. It took 10 days to count the votes from last week's election in Seattle, as it oftentimes does in these blue states. And in the end, a 43-year-old socialist who still gets an allowance from her mom and dad will now be in charge of running one of the largest cities in the country. Like most socialists, Katie Wilson was very unimpressive in the private sector, bouncing around as a quasi-community organizer, a rich girl with a philosophy degree from Oxford. That's a great way to light $150,000 on fire. That's what socialists are good at. And with Daddy still sending her at 43 years old $2,000 a month to make ends meet, and no, we're not making that up, Katie will now be in charge of Seattle and its $9 billion budget. And with all that money, she has very grandiose plans.
I want everyone in this great city of ours to have a roof over their head. I want universal child care and free K-8 summer care. I want world-class mass transit. I want great, safe public spaces where kids can run around with abandon. I want stable, affordable housing for renters. I want social housing.
I want. And she'll have $9 billion a year to play with. There you go. Unquestionably, she's going to raise taxes to get even more as well. It's such an easy message to sell, and these people that shouldn't even be running a classroom in a school are starting to run our American cities. More free everything, right? The skyrocketing cost of living in this country has created a fantastic opening for socialists and communists to get into power. Despite the irony of trying to fix a crisis created by too much government by creating even more government, which is what they're promising to do. A girl who can't even budget her own life, in charge of billions and an American city. What a country. She is Seattle's Mamdani. They have remarkably similar stories, the Nepo socialists. Zoran never has worked, never had to. Rich parents, father an ideological zealot, professor, mom a filmmaker. Zoran's first big responsibility in life, running the most important city in the world. This week, America became familiar with Jack Kennedy Schlossberg, another of these, JFK's grandson, a trust fund Kennedy social media influencer who is now running for Jerry Nadler's seat in the House.
She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride. She's got a ticket to ride, but she don't care.
Imagine if JFK was alive to see that. And how interesting that you can so often smell privilege on all of these lefties. Sheltered enough to actually believe the statements that they say, the things that they promise. Statements as hilarious as this one by Seattle's new mayor.
Being a socialist is really, first of all, it's about a belief in good governance, right? I think it's really damaging when people lose faith in the ability of their government to successfully tackle big challenges, when they lose faith in their government's ability to deliver services for the people.
Believe the government can do it all. That's an adult right there that still believes in the tooth fairy. In New York, a study from earlier this year found that Zoran's plan to send social workers to handle some 911 calls was already failing in its test. Most calls of the test program deemed ineligible, a strong portion of the rest getting no response at all. That is the reality of government. Katie Wilson thinks government can do everything, and it's very disappointing if you don't believe that. That's somebody that's probably never gotten a paycheck, never had to look at all that money you sent to the government and said, what the hell am I getting for all this, by the way? Feckless government in action. The more responsibility we give government, the more disappointment we endlessly find. But are these popular young leftists really concerned with implementation of their ideas? Of course not. The idea is the fun part. The sexy part is just trying it, being positive about what it might do. Who wants to hear about how it always fails? What a buzzkill, right? Politics is all about fun social media posts and clever videos like Zoran shows us, running around, having a good time. Ooh, I'm in the ocean. Za, Zoran, za. Or cosplaying as your Uncle John John, like Schlossberg does. These are not serious people by any stretch of the imagination. Today, Zoran Mamdani told New Yorkers to boycott Starbucks as workers strike over claims of unfair labor practices. That's how little this man understands the job he's about to go into. He just told everyone to boycott Starbucks as the incoming mayor. There are 300 Starbucks locations in New York City. A nice chunk of Zoran's budget is covered by the tax revenue that comes from those locations. Do you think he cares at all? No, it's all just monopoly money to him. Get ready for a wild ride. And expect more. These are the people that are taking over the Democrat Party. As we saw in this write-up from Puck News, Schumer is done in 2028. Almost nobody expects him to run again. And for as bad as he was, we can certainly promise that it can get much worse. We are watching the establishment Democrat Party be replaced by ideological morons. All right, former Congressman Dean Phillips made a name for himself as a common sense Democrat and tried to primary Joe Biden in this last election. Good to have you back on the show, sir. Thanks for coming on. I want to start with Chuck Schumer and a party that is really rapidly turned against him. And I'm wondering if you think is that seat actually going to be replaced by somebody like AOC? And what will that mean for your political party?
Well, Rob, I think we're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of interest in challenging the establishment. We've seen that, of course, on the right in recent years. Now we're seeing it on the left. An announcement that I think, as city council person in New York City, is going to take on Hakeem Jeffries. I wouldn't doubt that AOC does challenge Chuck Schumer. And I have to say, Rob, when I got to Congress not that long ago, Chuck Schumer was the youngest of the Democratic leaders. And now at 74, the oldest, and a man who's been serving in public office since 1974. Yeah. So I think the winds of change are blowing strong.
Well, you know, Republicans went through kind of the pain of a populist movement, and there was a lot of pain to that, and we're still going through it a little bit as Trump and that ideology kind of took over the Republican Party. Democrats, it looks like, are about to go through it as well, and they're going to get it from the far left flank. Do you think that flank is going to succeed in kind of reimagining what the party is?
Well, Rob, there's no question that the energy and ambition is really strong amongst the left. Younger, far more social media savvy, and don't underestimate. You know, competency, wisdom, experience is being replaced with social media savvy. And I think we voters have to just simply be aware of that. We shouldn't just be electing people who can rabble-rouse. We need to elect people who are competent. Yeah. And at the end of the day, Rob, the basis of the leftist movement is still more affordable housing, more affordable transportation, food, and healthcare. It's the notion of socialism as an economic model that everybody should be concerned about. And I think time will tell if this kind of nascent movement to the left is really more about social programs like Medicare and Social Security, or a change to the economic system, which should frighten all of us if that's what manifests.
That's what's terrifying. I want to show an example of that. I mean, Bloomberg is reporting today that Kathy Hochul in New York, the governor, is now looking at potentially a corporate tax hike to help Zoran Mamdani fund his agenda in New York City. That, to me, is a total capitulation from a woman that is a fairly moderate Democrat. I mean, she was right behind, Cuomo, who ran against Zoran Mamdani and got the job when Cuomo lost it. That to me that's scary, and that's also, I mean, talk about capital flight as well, which we've already seen out of New York. There's a lot of places that are willing to take these companies if New York doesn't want them or wants to tax them higher.
Yeah, well, I was going to say condemnation and taxation are not great strategies to inspire those of means to invest in any state or country or community in the world. And I am absolutely concerned. As a Minnesotan myself, people don't come to New York or Minnesota or northern states because of the weather. They come for cost of living and for a well-trained workforce. And I'm afraid that some of these policies are going to do just the opposite, which is create a flight of capital when actually New York will need it more than ever. We
have a socialist in Katie Wilson in Seattle is going to be the next mayor of Seattle. Her parents are still paying the bills for this 43-year-old woman, and she's elected on a very similar campaign to what Mamdani put together. So now you've got, I mean, we now have, you're surrounded by socialist Nepo babies that are the big, that are in the headlines for the Democrat Party these days. And that's what's, I think, so interesting. I mean, Mamdani is one. You've got her as another. You also have Jack Schlossberg, who's the grandson of JFK. These kids have really never worked much in their life, and they believe in, they hate capitalism. They believe in collectivism. There's a threat there, though, because they obviously have the energy, and that I think has got to be really scary for the establishment Democrat Party.
Well, I think there's no question. And I think it's worth noting that when our founders created this extraordinary system of governance, they created executive offices that were distinct from legislative offices. And I'm afraid that we are now putting too many people in positions of power in the executive branch, if you will, municipalities and mayorships around the country, with people who just don't have the experience running anything. And I think to your point there, that's an issue. It doesn't matter if it's right or left. There's a lot of room, a big tent, if you will, in legislative bodies of different opinions. I don't think we Americans should be electing people who are experienceless, who haven't run a coffee shop, let alone a large city. And I think America should be focused a little bit more on competency and a little less on ideology as it relates to managing cities and countries, because they're very different competencies.
Yeah, it's Seattle. That's a big city. New York. That's a big city. To let some socialist kids that haven't run anything just try to handle. Dean Phillips, thanks for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
Good to be with you, Rob. Thank you.
All right. All right, we've been following Venezuela closely for several weeks, and tonight it seems even more certain that Nicolas Maduro's days do appear to be numbered. According to reports, senior military leaders have been presenting the president with options to strike Venezuela potentially in the coming days. So it's possible we're going to see strikes imminently. It could happen over the weekend. We don't know. As the White House and Republicans have indicated, the communist leader should flee the country. Rick Scott saying on 60 Minutes he needs to get out. The possible moves, apparently, according to reporting, include targets on land like military installations, also drug trafficking routes as well. We've already seen some of that. The USS Gerald Ford carrier strike group has arrived in the Caribbean to combat drug cartels. And Tommy Pigott is with us from the State Department tonight. And it's good to have you on, Tommy. Is the United States, the first question, is the U.S. going to escalate things with Venezuela further than what we're doing with these drug boats?
Well, ultimately, as the president has made clear, and as the secretary has made clear, is we are engaged in a counter-narco-terrorist operation. And I think there's always a number that's important to keep in mind when we're talking about these boats, and that's 25,000. 25,000 Americans could be poisoned by the illicit drugs on every single one of those boats. The secretary and the president have made clear we're going to stop the flow of deadly drugs into this country. That is what this operation is focused on. That is what we are doing.
Rick Scott's a friend of the president. Eats with him in Mar-a-Lago. They know each other very well. He said a couple weeks ago in 60 Minutes that Maduro needs to get out of the country. That to me sounds like this is more than just, obviously we're worried about drugs. We don't like drugs coming into the country. But that seems to be a lot further along than what we're seeing here with these cartel strikes, these narco strikes.
Well, these narco-terrorist strikes are a national security imperative. And this is part of a whole government approach to address this. Leading cause of death for Americans being between ages 18 and 45, being overdoses fueled by fentanyl. So this is a national security imperative. The president and the secretary have laid out the justification for these strikes very clearly. That is what we're focused on doing. Again, this has been very clear from the beginning from the secretary and the president that we are focused on a counter-narcotics, counter-narco-terrorist operation.
But you won't confirm or deny, the reporting that there are options of going after Maduro himself from the United States government?
Well, what I can confirm is what we're doing, and that is the counter-narcotics operation.
Got it. Understood. Hexeth launching this Operation Southern Spear, targeting these boats and going after really drug cartels across the Western Hemisphere. And then we have also reporting from Ken Klippenstein says that a new national security strategy is in the works that makes the Western Hemisphere the top priority for the U.S. military. Part of that reporting says immigration, migration, transnational criminal organizations like cartels, foreign influence all come under the umbrella of Homeland Defense. Is the State Department kind of reimagining the Western Hemisphere? Has something changed?
Well, think of what you saw under the previous administration, which was the worst border crisis in U.S. history, and all the devastating impacts that came from that, including these narco-terrorists that took advantage of those migration flows for their illicit trade, and the amount of death and destruction that Americans faced because of that border crisis. Under this administration, it's been clear. We have the most secure border in U.S. history, and we are working with our partners across the region to address narco-terrorists across the entire region, because of course it affects the United States, but all of these countries are faced with a destabilizing effect of these groups. The Secretary has gone to the region multiple times just in a matter of months, showing that American leadership in our hemisphere is stronger than ever.
Yeah, and one more time before I let you go, Antifa, it was a designated domestic terror group by the president. Now it's also a foreign terror group as well. We've got video of a group of men, wielding hammers, attacking somebody in the middle of a street in a foreign country. This designation, what does this change about Antifa? I mean, we were told for a long time by the political left in this country that Antifa was just an idea. That does not on the screen look like an idea to me. Why is this now designated as a foreign terror group as well in a number of these different offshoots?
We see the designations of 4 groups across Germany, Italy, and Greece. And this is just the beginning in terms of identifying, dismantling these terror networks. We've been clear from the State Department that we have seen these groups wage a terror campaign against the United States and Western civilization. We're going to identify these groups and dismantle these networks. And these designations open up a variety of tools to make sure that there's not financial support, and also those offering aid and support can face consequences. And it's a very important tool in order to address this terror campaign we are seeing from these Antifa groups.
So you're saying foreign money comes in, and that's why we have the designation as it is, because foreign money supporting what we see here in the United States.
Well, foreign money is also affecting a lot of these different groups. So we're seeing across the board the domestic terror designation, but also we're seeing these groups operate internationally. We're going to dismantle and identify these terror networks no matter where they are and take action to address them.
Tommy Pigott from the State Department. Thanks, Tommy. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Gavin Newsom hits back after our interview of 2 U.S. senators from the Palisades last night. We got that next.
Will you be able to afford your golden years? Do you worry how you'll make ends meet? You may be leaving up to $100,000 unclaimed. You need this special report. How to boost your Social Security and retirement by at least $100,000 or more. Get your free copy today. You've earned the benefits. Take advantage now. See our special offer to claim your free report. Call or go online today.
A peace plan for Gaza. For the plan to advance, Hamas must disarm. Instead,
tonight, terrifying images emerging from Gaza. Videos show Hamas-linked gunmen carrying out a public execution as they return to the streets.
Hamas on a rampage, executing Palestinians. Bloody crackdown, spreading terror. For freedom, not terror, Hamas must go.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
We got to find out what happened here for the victims, especially the seniors that died out here. It's wrong. I mean, this fire should have been able to be prevented. They should have been able to help each of these families so their homes didn't burn down.
It happened because of gross incompetence, gross negligence on the part of elected officials at the state and the local level. And the people here in Palisades, they've been abandoned.
Clip from last night's show, Senators Rick Scott, Ron Johnson from the Palisades, comments that got Governor Gavin Newsom's attention. Newsom wants to, of course, wipe away all memory of January's fires and he hates coverage of this disastrous recovery that's gotten almost nowhere in 10 months. How embarrassing for California is this? Last night, Senators Scott and Johnson blasted Gavin's incompetence, called the tragedy totally preventable as well. Newsom's team certainly took notice and sent a statement requesting to fix inaccurate claims from the senators, along with a list of bullet points and background on it, painting Newsom as amazing and blaming Trump and Republicans for blocking FEMA funding. That's the whole reason that there's any issues at all in California, is because Republicans are blocking FEMA funding, saying if these two senators truly cared about helping people get back on their feet, they would be lobbying Congress to immediately pass a disaster aid bill and not flying across the country to kick fire survivors while they are down. I don't think anybody's kicking fire survivors while they're down, but this is what you get from the hairdo over there in California. We invited the governor on, got no response. Here's some of what we heard from those victims that were being kicked while they were down by Republicans at a hearing about the fires yesterday in the Palisades. Take a listen.
I am 94 years old. I survived 3 concentration camps and 3 weeks march before being freed by Russian and American soldiers. I watched everything I owned disappear in flames. At my age, it's not easy to begin again.
The LA Fire Department still has its fire department underfunded to less than it was 4 years ago.
There you go. John Alle is one of the panelists hosted by Rick Scott and Ron Johnson. He joins us now along with Steve Hilton, who's a Republican candidate for governor of California. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. John, I want to start with you. You lost property in this fire. Your family did. Gavin Newsom says that California has been perfect on this, but Republicans are the problem. What's your response to that?
First, Rob, I'd like to thank Senators Ron Johnson and Rick Scott for coming to California. We haven't had any continued support from our own California senators, and Senator Ron Johnson and Rick Scott's brought many of us together, including the owner of the LA Times. Sadly, neither Karen Bass nor any other elected official showed up. And we appeal to President Trump for his help and expertise. Yeah. Rob, our beaches today are still filled with fire debris. That's being neglected by our third world county supervisor, Lindsay Horvath, 10 months after the fire, while she attends climate control events, climate change events, instead of taking care of our own beaches. It's just disrespectful.
It's surreal. And Steve, just to let you jump in here for a second, what's your reaction to Newsom and the claim that California is getting it right, but it's Republicans that are holding this up, that are blocking this FEMA aid?
Well, honestly, it's just disgusting. It's truly disgusting. After, exactly as the senators pointed out and we just heard, it's their failures, their incompetence, and their ideology that caused the disaster in the first place. The mismanagement of the terrain there that allowed the fuel to build up, which meant these fires burned out of control. The incompetence that characterized the response, and now this neglect. I mean, it's just disgusting. And then when they're held accountable, people point out the failures, just as I did. I was up there just a week ago, standing in front of a very similar place as the senators you saw just there. And they cannot stand the accountability. This is what happens when you have one party rule, the arrogance, the complacency. They think there will be no consequences. They can mess up however much they like. Nothing's going to change. Well, it is changing in California because we're sick of all this. Yeah. And we're sick of them treating people with such contempt, especially when their failures caused the suffering that we see.
Right.
It's not good enough. It's nearly a year now. And the state of this is just truly appalling.
And that's what I wanted to ask John. I mean, John, you lost property in these fires. And when you look at the landscape as it sits right now, and it hasn't changed a lot, how long do you think it'll be before the Palisades looks like the Palisades did 1 year ago?
5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years.
With planning, building permits. It's sad because our mayor and our governor, their inaction and unwillingness and lack of thought to call meetings ahead of time, just to plan, assess, question, and discuss our resources, how our city and community could be prepared for an emergency and evacuation. of any kind cause death, cause relocation of immediate family members, my own family members.
Yeah. Steve, if you get the governor's seat, what do you change to speed that up? I mean, you can't wait 7 years to have the Palisades back and Malibu back.
And remember, Gavin Newsom, days after the fire, in the smoldering ruins in the Palisades, he pledged this quote, a Marshall Plan to rebuild. A Marshall Plan. You've seen nothing. It actually goes back to your conversation with Dean Phillips earlier, which is this kind of politician, these machine politicians who've never really done anything except manage their way around the political system. They don't know how to get things right. I just was struck by a comment from Karen Bass a few months ago. She made an announcement on social media. The post said, I have just signed an executive order streamlining permitting so we can rebuild in LA. I watched the actual clip of the video from the press conference. Here's what she actually said. I have just signed an executive order tasking agency heads with developing paths forward to streamlining. And you think, it's total bureaucratic BS. They have no idea how to actually make things happen in the real world. All they can do is issue statements and make promises, but they don't understand about follow through. They don't understand about getting results. They don't understand the right questions to ask. They don't push back on bureaucrats or on systems that are wrong and outdated. It's a total disaster. The change we're going to get when I'm governor is to have someone with business experience, government reform experience, and an attitude which says we're not going to take this nonsense anymore. We're going to get results.
John, I've got just 10 seconds left. Do you feel a change in the way people think about politics, especially in the areas where these fires were? Has that shifted? Because a lot of times you think that people in California, they're just brainwashed. They're going to keep voting this way forever.
More people are getting involved. It's affecting their pocketbook, and they're ready for action. They're ready for a change in the mayorship and the governor.
John, Alle, thanks so much. Steve Hilton, good to see you both. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, coming up here, 3-Eye Atlas. You know I got a weird thing about outer space, right? This bizarre object, the size of Manhattan, they say, that's changing trajectory, changing course, changing speed as it moves through our solar system. What is this thing? Harvard professor Avi Loeb has some very interesting thoughts, and he is next.
Hey, it's Mark Lauder. My career's taken me from the State House to the White House, campaigns for mayor, all the way to President of the United States. I came to Newsmax to help our viewers get more than the headlines, beyond the spin. It's a perspective you'll only see on Newsmax.
Sonobello helped me get back my sparkle this season.
This year, look amazing in every holiday photo with Sonobello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist.
Before I would hide in the back of photographs, I didn't expect the results to be this good. I'm so happy about it.
This holiday, save 50% on the area you're most excited to change. Tummy, waist, arms, thighs, you choose.
I got lipo done on my stomach and also on my arms as well. Best decision ever.
Sonobello permanently removes stubborn fat, tightens and tones skin, all in just one visit with less downtime.
All the fat was gone. When I saw myself in the dress, I knew I was about to live my best life.
Call 800-665-0288 to save 50% on your first area this holiday. Appointments are filling fast.
Run, do it. Because if you can feel half of what I feel, totally worth it.
This is a limited time offer. Save 50% on your first area. Call Sonobello today.
Total Beats Ultimate Heart Health is the newest innovation from America's best-selling Beats brand. Ultimate Heart Health contains a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support, plus CoQ10 for even better heart health. Find Total Beats Ultimate Heart Health at Walmart today.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
All right, welcome back. As we sometimes do, let's get a little bizarre on a Friday night. Let's talk about this 3-eye atlas, this mysterious interstellar object that's currently zipping through our solar system. It's fascinating. I love this stuff. NASA claims it's just a comet. Others think it could be some kind of a vessel. Moving at 137,000 miles per hour, 3.5 miles wide. 6 days before Christmas this year, 3-eye atlas will reach the closest distance to Earth as it buzzes through our region, and that'll be about 165 million kilometers away still, but that's rather close when you think about the scope and scale of the universe. As 3-eye atlas passed close to the sun, it did not disintegrate. Scientists say it's been showing a bright ion tail, and it's grown dramatically longer and more structured, that tail. We've heard it's actually changed trajectory a few times, 3-eye atlas, changing the direction that it's moving in. That would be somewhat bizarre for a comet. And an observatory has picked up a frequency from it by a Meerkat radio telescope in South Africa, which I'm not sure what to make of that. We're going to ask Harvard professor Avi Loeb, who's been investigating and questioning 3-eye atlas since it entered our solar system. And sir, it's good to have you back on. What do you believe that this could be?
Well, thanks for having me. Sure. It's definitely an object of a type that we've never seen before because it has a lot of anomalies, and we are trying to figure it out. And the best way to make progress is getting more data on it, and as it gets closer to Earth on December 19th. Now that it passed closest to the sun, what we see are multiple jets coming out of it, some in the direction of the sun and others opposite to that. And they go out to a few million kilometers, very far out. There seem to be a lot of mass carried by these jets, and the question is, are they originating from pockets of ice on the surface of a natural object, or maybe they represent some thrusters on a technological object? And we should be able to figure it out by the speed of those jets that could be measured with telescopes on the ground or in space that we have.
Is it, I mean, when it gets, in a month, when it's as close as it's going to get, is that going to be relatively close enough for you guys to get a better look at it, like a serious look at this thing?
Definitely. There are hundreds of telescopes around the globe that can look at it and did look at it in previous months. And moreover, we have the Webb telescope and the Hubble telescope. And finally, it will come close to Jupiter, where we have a spacecraft called Juno that can observe it before it will go out of the region, the inner solar system. So we have plenty of opportunities. And like in any blind date, it's best to keep your eyes on the partner on the other side before you have any opinion.
So we have something near Jupiter. I mean, when did we send that out? That's a long way away. That's unbelievable. Do you ever see things change course as they move through? I mean, when something changes course, that feels to me like it's being controlled.
No, there is an additional force acting on it in addition to gravity. It could be as a result of just the evaporation of ices on the surface as a result of sunlight hitting them. But it could also be the result of some engine, some propulsion. And the way to figure it out is to see how much mass is being lost, what is the speed by which that mass is leaving the object. And we can figure this out with upcoming data. There will also be a high-resolution image that was taken already on October 2nd by the high-rise camera on board the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. And because of the government shutdown, it was not released as of yet, but we hope within a few days it will come out.
10 seconds left. I mentioned the radio signal, something from South Africa. What did that mean? Does that mean anything?
It's just the detection of some molecules that exist around it, containing oxygen and hydrogen, nothing significant.
Nothing significant, but you're hoping to learn more, and you've got about a month before she comes as close as she's going to get to Earth. I love this stuff. And Professor Avi Loeb, it's good to see you, Doctor. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I'll be glad to give you an update.
We will be asking for that in about 5 weeks. Thank you, sir. Good to see you. All right. Can you be a congressman in California if your primary residence is on the East Coast in Washington, D.C.? We're going to dive into Swalwell next.
You know Rob Finnerty. He's smart, bold, and stands strong for your values. Rob is fighting for you. Watch Finnerty weeknights only on Newsmax.
Hey, I'm Mike Hammond from Signal Relief. You know the holidays are meant to be about family, laughter, and taking things slow. But when you're in pain, it's hard to enjoy any of it. I know because my back has made life difficult for me. But that's why I love the Signal Relief patch. It helped me enjoy the holidays again. It helped me enjoy my family again. I've given this patch as a gift to friends, family, and even strangers in pain because I know it works. In a recent study, over 85% of people felt relief. It really doesn't matter where you hurt because the patch works, and it comes with a money-back guarantee. For a limited time, we're bringing back our largest discount ever, 50% off. So get a Signal Relief patch today. Trust me when I tell you, the patch works.
My heart has experienced life-changing wins, losses, and countless miles. To keep living at my speed, I trust Cunol CoQ10. CoQ10 is the #1 cardiologist-recommended supplement for heart health. Cunol, the brand I trust.
I'm a martial artist, a skydiver, a pilot, and all of them require your feet to work. Get up in the morning, and it felt like I was standing on marbles on my heel. When I went into the Good Feet store, the fitting was personalized. It was all about me. You put in the arch supports, and your day becomes better, and the sun shines, the unicorns run by, and, you know, it's a good life. I'm Randy, and that's my Good Feet story.
See for yourself with a free personalized arch support fitting at the Good Feet store.
As parents, we all want the same thing, to see our kids active, happy, and confident. What if there was an easy way to play that challenges their minds and bodies? Introducing the Gibbon Slackboard, available now and on sale just in time for the holidays. Slackboard is a great way to develop their coordination and have hours of fun.
I like to play games and have challenges with the family.
It's hard, but it's really fun. It's an engaging way to build focus, concentration, and a growth mindset. Every minute on the Slackboard is a minute off the screen, helping them stay calm.
My 3 girls really enjoyed playing with it. I just put the board out there for them to play with, and I would say maybe the whole hour that we're outside, they're going on and off the board.
Designed with safety in mind, it's ready to use out of the box, anytime, anywhere. The Slackboard, simple, effective, and made for play. Save up to 25% off for a limited time only during our holiday sale. Go to gibbon-usa.com today.
I'm Elmer Heinrich. At 91 years of age, here with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you.
It really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order now. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back. California Congressman Eric Swalwell has found himself at the center of a mortgage fraud case. Trump DOJ opened a probe investigating allegations of millions of dollars worth of loans and refinancing based on Swalwell declaring his Washington, D.C. home as his permanent residence, even though he is a congressman from California. It's pretty clear. Our U.S. government mandates that you have to live primarily in the state that you represent in Congress. He spoke to MSNBC last night about this, very defiant.
Of course, these allegations are false, just like the allegations against Adam Schiff are false, and Letitia James are false, and Lisa Cook are false. This is really about Donald Trump going after his political enemies, and no one has been a more vocal critic than me. I only have one mortgage and a residence in California, and I spend my time every week between California and Washington, D.C. This is, again, just Donald Trump doing everything he can to target his enemies.
I mean, they can say this all they want. If it says that the D.C. house is a primary mortgage, that's the primary mortgage. What the hell are you going to say to that? Dr. Michael Savage joins us now, host of Savage Nation. How do you have a primary home in D.C. if you represent California, sir? I mean, he says it's all nonsense. It doesn't seem to be.
Well, I'm not from into outer space. You're absolutely saying what is. Anyone from America understands that he broke the law. But, Rob, from my point of view, he's not the biggest fish that the Trump administration should be going after. I mean, he's a horrible creature. He's a big mouth. He's attacked Trump repeatedly. But those are not crimes. The residence that is falsely claimed may be a crime, but it's a rather minor crime in my mind compared with the crime that Alejandro Mayorkas committed as head of DHS, opening up the border to, 20 million people, lying about it repeatedly. And what I'm saying really is, why doesn't the Trump administration go after the big fish? And there are some big fish out there. Swalwell is a minnow.
I agree with that. And I always thought it was what they did to the country with immigration was treasonous. And I think it was very obvious that Mayorkas was lying multiple times under oath in front of Congress when he talked about it, when he would just sit there and tell you that the border was secure. I mean, they were clearly intentionally flooding the country with people for political reasons and then telling us it wasn't happening right to our face, telling us right under oath that it wasn't happening to our face. I mean, how in the hell is that not a serious crime?
They're the big crimes. And what I'm saying is, yes, Trump is angry. And yes, he's vindictive. I know that. Trump never forgets his enemies. He never forgets his friends either. But maybe he can't touch Mayorkas. I think he's one of the people pardoned by Biden with the auto pen. I think Trump's only going after the people he can go after who have not been pardoned. That may explain why they're going after even the minnows like Swalwell.
Want to get to this one from the Heritage Foundation, a story we've been following. Another fellow has resigned over the foundation's position on that Nick Fuentes interview with Tucker Carlson. You have a woke right theory. Tell us about this.
Well, it's on my X account. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I thought it was pretty insightful. I'll give people on your show a summary. I said the woke right has fractured the Republican Party. And just as we as a nation is climbing out of the rubble of the woke left, which, as we know, blamed whites, America itself for all the problems of the blacks, gays, immigrants, minorities, along comes a black racist, in my opinion, named Candace Owens, with her little Goebbels, Nick Fuentes, and the once reasonable and now bizarre Tucker Carlson. And collectively, they have found a new niche: the Jew, the Jew, the Jew. You find the problem, the Jew is the cause. Now, they say it's not the Jew. These fireflies say it's not the Jew, it's Netanyahu, it's Zionism. That's their clever little way of playing the game here. They claim, though, if you read carefully into their rhetoric, some of them, that Jews, the Jewish religion is satanic. They don't even understand, although they claim to be Christian nationalists, they're actually attacking their own identity as Christians, in that Christianity was based upon Judaism. Every educated Christian understands the origins of Christianity. And here's the thing, Rob, I'm online all the time, maybe too much so, and this race-based anti-Jewish rhetoric is something I never thought I would see in America in my lifetime. It's something out of early 1930s Germany, which could only lead to attacks upon the weakest and most vulnerable amongst the Jews, the pious and the elderly, because the billionaires, the rich, they're not going to ever be touched by it. It's going to be the weak and the elderly who are going to get attacked if this racism, which is what it is, disguised as anti-Zionism. And also this attack on Israel for its war in Gaza, while it may have some validity, I think it may have gone on too long, but I'm not in the IDF. I'm not the leader of Israel. I don't really know what's involved in that war, Rob. They do. They're on the ground. And from their point of view, they see it as kill or be killed. That's how the Israelis probably see it. And having said that, nevertheless, it's the innocent Jewish people who are going to pay for it because of the rhetoric from the woke right here in America.
It's a good summation of it. Dr. Savage, good to have you on. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Happy Friday. And I am also very fascinated by that thing up in the sky.
I know. I want to know. I don't want to leave this planet not knowing. So
you know what I think it is?
I want to find out. Two seconds and then tell real quick.
It's Santa.
These kids, 6 days before Christmas. Makes sense. Dr. Savage, thanks so much. All right, government been reopened for what, 2 days now? And Senate Democrats have not gotten their way yet on the biggest issue, which is the Obamacare tax credits that are set to expire at the end of the year. Instead of an extension for the failing program, Republicans now want to, fix Obamacare and make it Trump care or something different. Plans to create federally funded spending accounts that would help Obamacare enrollees directly rather than subsidizing insurers to help keep costs down. Take the money, not to the insurance companies, take it to the people. Florida Senator Rick Scott pitching his plan to Trump, which would put federal money in health savings account style accounts for individuals to increase competition and drive costs down. Another idea would be for Republicans to overhaul Obamacare with only GOP votes by using the budget reconciliation process. They'd have to just do it with 50 or 51. Trump, however, is still keen on the idea of just giving the money right to the American people. Take a listen.
I'm calling today for insurance companies not to be paid, but for the money, this massive amount of money, to be paid directly to the people of our country so that they can buy their own health care, which will be far better and far less expensive than the disaster known as Obamacare.
All right, Dick Morris joins us now to talk about this. So you have this failing Obamacare, which was this dream of, cheap health care for everybody that has completely failed, very expensive, being subsidized by all of us. Republicans trying to figure out a way to make this work better. What do you think that plan should be?
Well, I think that Trump pulled a Trump card, if you will, in the government shutdown, because the Democrats got to the point where they said we're fighting for Obamacare because these high premiums that are coming in, if we reopen the government, are going to be way excessive and people won't be able to pay that. And what Trump then did was he came back and he said, okay, let's reopen the government and give the money directly to the people who have the insurance and let them shop around and get the best deal they can, which obviously means not from the current insurance companies. Mm-hmm. The Democrats are just using Obamacare to try to get their insurance companies paid off. The program was originally developed largely so that it could subsidize insurance companies and line their pockets and in return get campaign contributions. And with the funds cut off, Trump called their bluff. He said, okay, I'll restart the funds, but I'll give it directly to the people as opposed to their insurance companies. It was a brilliant move. It got the government reopened because the Democrats were terrified that this would actually happen. Yeah. And now the Republicans are proceeding with this advantage to actually craft a plan. And Senator Scott's plan is a great one, and it could be one of the most fundamental reforms in American history, really, to get rid of this albatross.
I'm very excited to see what this becomes. Good summation there. Dick Morris, thank you so much. Good to see you. Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right, a year later, Hunter is still furious. That's next.
This mother, the way that he talks about my dad, him.
You've put up with your old shower for too long. It's outdated, unsafe, and it's time to replace it. But why struggle with a lengthy shower remodel when Jacuzzi can do it in just one day? And there's no need to break a sweat or your budget.
For a limited time, get free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
So you can finally convert your old bath to a safer, easy entry shower, complete with a custom seat, grab bars, and slip-resistant floor installed in 1 day.
My overall experience with Jacuzzi has been wonderful. Everything was customized to the way I wanted it for the price that I wanted to pay.
I've had a great experience from start to finish.
Don't take matters into your own hands. Do it the smart way. Give Jacuzzi Bath Remodel a call.
Call or go online now to jacuzzibathremodel.com. For the first time ever, we're offering free fixtures and a free shower door, plus 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year.
Call 800-201-9527, 800-201-9527. Call now.
He's breathing. Okay, go again.
Nearly 5,000 people die from choking each year. That's frightening. I'm Dr. Ben Carson.
And I'm Arthur Lee. Well, there are ways to help prevent choking. Accidents do happen. That's why I invented the Life Pack.
Anyone can use this device, and it can save a life in seconds.
Just place, push, and pull. It's that simple. Please order one for your home, office, car, anywhere you eat.
Go to lifehack.net or call 877-543-3822.
We're down here in Wimberley, Texas, to build a smart home for Dustin Weber.
We want to welcome the Weber family to Wimberley.
Yesterday was just amazing.
The thought that has been put into these smart homes, they've thought of everything that will make his life better.
This home allows me the freedom to experience my children, taking them to bed. This home allows me the freedom to not slip and fall in the bathroom. It is a life-changing experience.
Almost everything we do requires balance, but studies show our balance worsens as we age. What if there was a safe, fun, and effective way to improve your balance? Introducing the Gibbon Slackboard. Available now and on sale just in time for the holidays. Just 5 minutes a day can improve your balance, enabling you to improve performance or simply reduce your risk of falling.
I use the board about twice per week, maybe 5 to 10 minutes tops. And I've noticed that just in that short amount of time, I've been able to improve my balance.
The Slackboard keeps your foot just a few inches off the ground for safety. And with our Balance app, you'll get free guided videos that deliver results fast.
I really feel that the Slackboard is going to help improve my quality of life and to avoid any injuries that can happen as you get older.
The Slackboard makes balance training simple, fun, and effective for your entire family. Right now, Slackboards are 25% off. Go to gibbon-usa.com today.
Well, back time now for news from the left. Hunter, still bitter, back on a podcast, furious at Trump. Take a listen.
This the way that he talks about my dad, him. Unlike anyone else, my dad kicked his like a rented mule and beat him by 7.5 million votes, got more votes than anyone that has ever run for president of the United States of America, and 81 million votes, at higher participation rate than anyone that has ever run for president since 1901.
Yeah, your dad is just a political icon. He was so amazing that 81 million people, it was COVID, bro. It was COVID, bro. That's how he won. That's how he got all the votes. Your dad is a terrible politician. And you're a bad kid. Hunter also accusing Trump and Elon Musk of committing genocide by ending the very wasteful U.S. aid programs. Take a look.
Let me tell you where the genocide is about to occur, and is occurring right now. Directly because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Donald Trump, under the direction of Elon Musk, ended USAID. What they did is they went in and they flipped the switch. And because they flipped that switch, 14 million people are going to die. 4 million of them are going to be children.
Yeah.
That's a genocide.
Do you think that this crackhead idiot addicted to money and hookers and blow his whole life cares about the rest of the world and the kids in Africa? He's pissed because he can't grift off any of that money anymore. How much of that money gets siphoned off by little worms like Hunter Biden? That's why they ended it. There was so much waste. Hunter. Trump with a major update on Venezuela from the plane tonight. Breaking news next.
Closed captioning brought to you by MagnaLife Arnica Pain Relief Gel. Great for arthritis pain.
Your pain is real. Listen to what real customers have to say about using MagnaLife Arnica Pain Relief Gel. The pain was gone in under 3 minutes. My miracle in a jar.
Available at your local retailer. Invest in Ukraine now. Ukraine is rebuilding, innovating, and shaping the future. Because Ukraine is the potential. Kyivstar is Ukraine's leading digital operator. Invests in Ukraine's connectivity, entertainment, ride-hailing, healthcare, and innovation. It's time to think opportunity. It's time to think Ukraine now.
Afraid your roof won't make it through the winter? Roofmax can tune up and restore your roof for a fraction of the cost of a replacement. Call now, and the tune-up portion is free with your Roofmax treatment.
I'm Elmer Heinrich, at 91 years of age with my wife Shirley, who is 83. Now, both of us are still cutting a wide swath in life, all because of Immuno 150. Now, neither of us have any kind of sickness, and we're as flexible as we were 30 years ago, and we still do the physical things we did 30 years ago. Now, we are asking you to use Immuno 150 like we do. Give it a chance for at least 90 days so that you can see what 70 plant minerals and 80 additional nutrients can do for you. You won't believe it. Immuno 150 is an awesome nutritional supplement. There's nothing like it.
Yes, it really is incredible.
Yeah, try it. You will be surprised. Order online or call the number listed on the screen, but don't place your order until after you've watched the videos on our website. Thank you from both of us, and God bless.
A wide leaf filter? It's well designed, efficient. I appreciate that.
Leaf Filter's technology keeps debris out of your gutters for good. Guaranteed.
What more could you ask for?
Call 833-LEAF-FILTER today or visit leaffilter.com.
I'm sorry to bother you, but I have 30 seconds to give you a very important message. My name is Arthur Lee. I'm the CEO and inventor of LifeVac, a simple choking rescue device that could save a life in a choking emergency. We've saved over 3,000 lives now, but we're not there. 5,000 people a year choke to death, one child every 5 days. Please consider protecting your family in a choking emergency with LifeVac. Go to lifevac.net today. Thank you for your time.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell it all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
All right, finally tonight on the flight to Palm Beach just now, Trump saying he's made up his mind on Venezuela.
On Venezuela, sir, you've had a lot of meetings on Venezuela. I know you can't tell us what your next steps will be, but can you say, have you made up your mind on what you'd like to do for as far as action for Venezuela?
I made up my mind, yeah.
You have?
I mean, I can't tell you what it would be, but I sort of made up my mind.
He's made up his mind, but he can't tell you what he's going to do. This is going to get very interesting here. Are they going to oust Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela? We'll see. All right, Finity's next. We'll see you on Monday.